I'm going to set up my new Eastwood MIG 135 to use .030 flux cord wire. This is INE tub. From my research, it's one of the better cheap flux cord wires you can get. It is .030, as I mentioned, a 2-pound spool. You do need to reconfigure this welder when you first get it. You have to switch it to use flux core, you have to change the tip, and you might also have to change the drive roller. And I'm also going to show you how to set up the gun and the ground clamp. So I'm going to get started. Flip that up. I will note it does have the instructions on how to do this right on the inside, but this actually differs a little bit from the instruction manual, and I think it depends on your exact drive roller setup. So to start with, I am going to set it up for the different sized wires. So all that you do is take off the clamp for the wire feed, and there's a thumb screw right here to change the drive roller. I like this because they've made it completely toolless. Pull out the drive roller, and you'll see it is a keyed roller. You can see that side it says 0.8 to 0.9, and the side says 0.6. So whichever one's facing you is the one it is. You'll see that there's a larger groove and a smaller groove. So I need to set it up for the larger groove, which says 0.8 to 0.9. So you just put that back on with the keyway, so that the larger groove is in and the size that you're using is facing out. Put the thumb screw back in. Alright, next I am going to switch where the ground is. So again, toolless, these are just big thumb screws. Take this off, and as it says right here, for output polarity, you're using MIG, the ground clamp goes to the negative. If you're using flux, the ground clamp goes to the positive, and you just switch this one off. So that's what I'm doing right now. Next, I'm going to feed in the grounding clamp. So I've got that right here. And to feed that in, a hole right on the front. Slide this right in. See, that comes through. After you feed it through the front, you've got it right here. They recommend putting it through this little loop. I'm just going to feed it through the front with my left hand, pull up with my right, and then just put it over the post. Attach the thumb screw. Make sure those elbows firmly attached. Before moving on to installing the gun, I want to note there's a set screw that you need to loosen to fit in the connector. It doesn't need to come all the way out, there's quite a bit of threads there. To install the gun, you take the connector end, and you're going to slide it into this front part. If you meet resistance, make sure you loosen that set screw. Just slide this right in until it's nice and firmly in. Then, while applying some pressure to the front, tighten the set screw. And I don't think you want to tighten that like crazy, just enough to make sure the gun can't come out. Also, make sure you install the control wires for the gun. There is a keyway here, so it can only go one way, that faces downward. So simply slide it in. There's a little resistance, and then tighten this lock collar. The gun should be ready to go. Now I'm going to move on to actually installing the wire. To install the wire, you're going to remove this wing nut, which is used to tension and roll. You're going to remove this entire part, which is the 8-inch spool adapter. I'm going to be using a smaller spool. Take out your welding wire. Again, this is .030 flux cord wire. Find where the wire starts to spool from. In this case, they actually melted it into the case here. Hadn't really seen that before, but I use that. Welding wire loves to do that, unspool on you. I'm just going to try to remove these bird parts. Make sure that you put this on so that it'll actually unspool as it goes. I'm going to remove this sticker first just to make sure that it doesn't impede the spooling at all. Slide it on. I'm going to put on the keyed lock, the wing nut, and what they say to do with this one, I wish it was spring tension, but they just say tighten this down enough that there's tension on it, but not so that it can't move. That seems good. I already had this undone earlier. After you have your spool tensioned, make sure you have a nice straight length of the welding wire. And don't let too much come off your spool. I'm going to feed it into this lower hole. Put this up. It should come through over the roller. You see it coming through there. And then use your fingertip, guide it into the other side like that. Should go in without too much of a fight. Push a little ways in. Again, make sure your spool is under control. Flip this down. Slide this up. Should be ready to go. I also want to note that you have to make sure that this switch is set for the gun, not the spool gun. Now lastly, I'm going to need to change the tip on my welding gun because right now it's set for 0.6mm or the 0.023, 0.025 wire. So you take off the shielding gas tip. The smaller tip is right in here. You're going to use the tool provided with the welder. Slip it over the tip. Take it out. Simply find the proper size tip. This one is 0.8, 0.030. Screw it right into the tip of the gun. Tighten it down a little bit. You don't need to go crazy here. And in this case, we don't actually need the shielding tip because we're not going to be using gas. I'm going to put it back on for right now. And there you go. Now this welder should be ready. Now I'm just going to test to make sure this feeds and get it coming out of the gun. Turn it on. Fan comes on. Now as I pull the trigger, it should feed. Just trying to pull it. I'm going to turn up the wire feed speed. Looks like my line is a little bent. I might have too much tension on it. A little tension here. I was having a bit of trouble getting it to feed, so what I did is I disconnected the actual gun. I'm going to feed this part in manually. Reconnect that. Retighten the thumb screw. Set screw, I should say. Try again. Make sure you have a nice clean path. Make sure that the entire spool, the gun isn't too bent. It's starting to come out of the gun. There it is. You can also see the motor smoothed out, so it was probably just getting caught a little bit along the way inside the tube. So now this should be ready to weld.